Lipids are the second group of macromolecules. Most often we think of lipids as fats. These are one of the types of lipids. The characteristic that binds all lipids together is that they are hydrophobic. They do not mix easily with water. Think of some food items you associate with fats. You probably think about things like oils, nuts, butter. Oil and water do not mix because oil is hydrophobic. Animal meat, while it is a lot of protein, does usually have very high levels of fats because of the way that animals are raised today. There are three types of lipids: fats, phospholipids, and steroids. We'll start with fats. A fat is made up of two molecules, glycerol and fatty acids. On the right is a fat molecule called a triglyceride. It has one glycerol at the top in the orange compartment here, and three fatty acid chains in yellow. These chains are made up of hydrocarbons, which causes the entire molecule to be nonpolar or hydrophobic. These chains define important properties of fats. If a fat is made of only single bonds, like the two chains here on the left, it is called a saturated fatty acid. It is saturated with hydrogen. Everywhere you could put hydrogen, there is one. This makes the chains straight, and they tend to stack together very closely. Most saturated fats tend to be solid at room temperature. Think of things like butter. If the chain has double bonds, like the chain on the far right, then it is called an unsaturated fatty acid. It doesn't have hydrogens everywhere you could put hydrogens. It is not saturated. Can you see how it isn't straight anymore, but now it has a kink in it? This kink in the chain makes it hard for them to pack closely together. So unsaturated fats are typically liquid at room temperature. Something like an oil. If you've ever cooked with coconut oil, you know that it's actually solid. That's because coconut oil has a lot of saturated fat. One method of preparing foods to be preserved longer is called hydrogenation. This is simply the act of adding hydrogen. This takes unsaturated fats and adds hydrogen to make them saturated. It can also create a different type of fat called a trans fat, which is very bad for heart health. Trans fats are found in foods like margarine, cookies, crackers, baked goods, and fried foods. Having a high amount of saturated and trans fats in the diet has been linked to heart disease. Heart disease is the biggest killer in the United States. 60% of Americans die of heart disease. This means things like heart attacks and atherosclerosis, which is the hardening of arteries. When there is a high level of fat in the blood, we start to see cholesterol deposits forming in the arteries around the heart, and it can block off blood flow. This causes the heart tissue to die, which causes a heart attack. Depending on how much of the heart tissue dies, a heart attack can range from deadly to unnoticed. Either way, the heart muscle cannot heal. It doesn't regenerate. And every single heart attack leaves the heart weaker than before. In the 1950s, some scientists were starting to realize the link between saturated fats and the associations of heart disease. So they started a campaign to replace those fats with trans fats, which were new. By the 90s, trans fats were everywhere in our diet. The standard American diet is littered with them. It wasn't even until 2006 that the FDA required the listing of trans fats on nutrition labels, and 2015 when the FDA demanded that trans fats be removed from school menus like lunches that you would feed children. So in our campaign to remove saturated fats, we actually replaced them with something much, much worse. America has become addicted to trans fats. Studies show that just removing trans fats from the diet could prevent one of every 5 heart attacks. That's 20% of heart attacks. Phospholipids are similar to fats, but they only contain 2 tails, and they have a polar region on the head. This means that they have both a hydrophilic and hydrophobic regions. When phospholipids are put in water, they form a bilayer where the heads are ported towards the water, which is inside and outside of the cell, and the hydrophobic tails create a waterless boundary between them. This arrangement makes them perfect for creating the plasma membrane that surrounds cells. The last type of lipids are steroids. These are also hydrophobic. They form 4 carbon rings, like you can see in the molecule at the top right. Attached to these rings are different functional groups that give each steroid its unique qualities. Cholesterol is the most common steroid in the body. We use it to make other steroids like testosterone and estrogen. It is also used to help construct the plasma membrane of the cell. Anabolic steroids are synthetic versions of the male hormone testosterone. Many athletes have been known to take these in an attempt to build muscle and increase athletic performance. These drugs are very harmful to the body and have been banned in professional and collegiate sports. These anabolic steroids cause the human body many problems. In men, they can lead to roid rage or overactive anger reactions, depression, liver damage or disease, cancer, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, shrunken testicles and reduced fertility, reduced sex drive, and even breast enlargement.